Well, it's a good evening from the studios of Radio FM 88 Australia. We're broadcasting in Brisbane, Queensland. And we just suddenly got some sunshine today, but even so, it's a bit chilly now, even at 19 degrees. Right now at 7 o'clock with a jumper on and Hug boots, would you believe it? But anyway, it is what it is. It's Thursday night's our show with Priti Pauline, our co-host in the UK, and she's based in London. And our guest today is actually staying in South London. And what an interesting gentleman I've just been speaking off here. And we're going to have a really great conversation, which is a carry-on from 2 weeks ago with John Gilbert. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Priti, and then we'll do the introductions.
Hey, good morning, Jeff, and good morning, Stewart. It's great to see you both here. Stewart is a fascinating character, and he and I had some conversations yesterday, and it seemed to me that he'd be a great person to tell the rest of the world about the visions that he had in 1990 and what the future was going to be looking like. And he tells me that in 2020, that there was a stark and very clear awareness that the future had arrived. So, good morning, Stewart. How are you today?
Absolutely fabulous.
Absolutely
but not to worry,
fabulous. So what were these visions that you had all those years back? So 1990, 36 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. But maybe I should go back a little further, because I was living in a little shack down in the bottom south of Arizona, doing an aviation course. And I was having all this strange visions about all sorts of things. And I didn't have any clue what to do with it. Everybody thought I was Lulu and so on when I talked to them about it. So I went through the process to try and shut it down, because I have no way to do anything with this information. You know, things like plane crashes and train crashes and the 1992 earthquake in California that came about 2 years later. You know, stuff like that.
They were like,
you can't tell
premonitions.
Premonitions,
like
yeah.
Premonitions
and visions. And so as I tried to shut it down, I was then got this whole wave of what was happening in the future, but I had no idea when the future was. So what could I do with that? And the visions all started about people coming together, all the craziness that was going on, and the people coming together, eventually setting up communities, and the cities becoming basically work zones, and everybody lives in the country in the community where they possibly can.
Right.
So
were there many people living in the country?
Everybody that could possibly live in the country, they were living in the country. Maybe it could be 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, 200 acres even for a larger community, but they were all functioning as communities in support of each other. Growing their own food, being self-sufficient. Taking care of local means that the so-called globalists have no power over you. So if everybody fixed local, what the hell can the people above do? Nothing. And that's what I visioned all the way through the early 90s.
Was this a repeat vision all the time? It was just constantly coming through, or it was just a flash of inspiration?
It was a lot of repeat, but there was added information, little bits of extra information now and again. And getting to what you said earlier about 2020.
Yeah.
Of course, I had no idea what that future was and when it was. And 2020 came, I had this big aha moment. We're there. We're now able to break the cycle of the past bullshit and start creating these, come together and create these communities.
Okay.
So those visions were brought back to life, and we're now working on and doing just that.
Hey, Stuart, you know, when we're talking off air there, we're talking about the country area that you came from. You know, Australia and New Zealand set about setting up cooperatives. And a cooperative was where, like, say, for example, the meat industry, there's a company in New Zealand called Auckland Farmers Freezing Cooperative. And, of course, the farmers were the shareholders and stakeholders. And so they would send their stock into the meatworks that they'd paid for, and they actually being shareholders. The cost for actually producing that was subsequently reduced, but they also got a profit share back at the end of the financial year. And so we saw that not only in the meat industry, but we saw that in the butter industry, we saw in the milk factories. And it was a great way where communities did come together. And a couple of years ago, I was down in New South Wales at a place called Bega, well known for its cheeses. And it's still a cooperative. And it's got 4 farmers on the board and 3 other members who are independent. You know, some of them have got sales backgrounds and financial background, but the chairman is actually a farmer. And that's how the articles are set up. So it stays within the farmers who are supplying the milk. So we've seen other cooperatives, particularly in North Queensland here, that have gone across from being cooperatives into commercial processes. And then, of course, the price for butterfat and the other milk has dwindled so much that, you know, it's been very hard for the farmers to maintain a lifestyle and an income once the business came out of being a cooperative and went into the commercial world of, you know, being on the stock exchange. That cooperative system is the best way of going forward as a community. That's my appreciation of what I learnt over the years. What was your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. What I was visioning was communities functioning in their own surroundings, and then come together with this cooperative stuff. At the moment, we've got so many rules and regulations that even the cooperatives are sort of handicapped with a whole load of nonsense. But the cooperatives that are purely run by the people, by the many different communities, will function and do the good thing for the people.
True. Yeah. Of course, finance and the money, the cycling of money through the banking fraternity is also another issue. That there's a couple of people throughout Australia who have been setting up their communities, and one of them was, and it's a great motto, is "Don't bank the cash." Yeah. And so the cash flows through motor mechanics, you know, right through to plumbers and drainers and electricians and to the food stores and all that stuff. And it's the tourists who come through the town who use their cards to make the payments and so forth. But a lot of people travel around Australia and they've learnt that they've got to have cash because there can be power outages in the country areas. And if there's no power, then they can't have the electricity to get the fuel out of the ground through the pumps. And so some of those rural communities there will have a hand pump, you know, just to bring up the fuel necessary. So for vehicles going out in the bush, you really need to have a diesel. You just can't use electric vehicles. But there's the life of living out in the country and being self-sustainable is you got to learn. I mean, that show
Absolutely.
with Jeremy Clarkson has just taken the world by storm about the components that have been thrown by the government of the day, that's forcing them to be the productive person who then's got all these people above them who's pushing paper around to get to the point that the poor farmer, and that's exactly right. The word poor is not the appropriate word to use, but that's exactly what's happening. They're the ones who are producing, and they're the ones who are getting kicked from here to London. So
the middleman, which is the governments and all the other so-called distributors, they're the ones sucking the thing dry, because the farmer gets almost nothing. They get all the money, and then they pass it on to the big supermarkets to make a little profit too. So, we're all getting screwed from it every which way if you're talking about the globalist centralized system. And that's why I was so pleased when I saw the happenings in 2020, because I figured that could break the cycle and wake enough people up to get into communities and look after each other, then bring each community together to make a cooperative to share the food, to share the resources.
Sure. So we saw in Australia the birth of an organisation called Barter Card. Yeah. So it was a way of making a payment with another organisation that was saying, well, okay, we'll take a percentage in the hard currency, but the rest of it will be in barter, and there's a percentage, But then you come just before, a month before the end of the financial year, you got all these people with barter dollars, and then they have to sell them in order to pay back. Basically they drop the price from $1 down to 30 cents. The 30 cents then is the 30 cents is in real money, or say the Australian currency, which they then in turn have to pass over the ATO, because the ATO decided, Australian Taxation Office decided that barter dollars, every dollar was equivalent to an Australian dollar, so it's got to be taxable. So the barter card, came and gave a birth to another way of financial independence. And the other organisation that started up in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland was called LETS, Local Employment Training System, where you could barter with people and for their time to come and do labour or provide bookkeeping or something. And they had this LETS scheme was a ledger where their time was put in and allocated to appropriate value, and then they used that. They brought it out of Sunshine Coast. They brought it into Brisbane, into a suburb called West End, which is quite an area of thespians, people, artists, the musos, that sort of set. It didn't last all that long. It just it pilfered out. So finding that method of doing an exchange for services is the crux to overcoming and getting this thing on the project on the way, isn't it?
It is. The interesting thing, though, is that I believe the present structure is finished. It's over, and we basically have to completely destroy it before we can start building a new one, and that could be very painful for a lot of us. But you can't. It's not repairable. What's there is not repairable. We have to get rid of it and start again. And if you look at the original Canadian system, they created their own money. Anytime they wanted to do a infrastructure build, like the health service or roads or whatever, build airports and things like that, they just created some more of their own money. They built the thing that they wanted to build, and then that stayed in the community, and everybody became reasonably wealthy. There was no inflation. It was all backed by some sort of asset or value until about 1947. Don't quote me on the date, but it was somewhere around then, after the war, that the central banks decided that they wanted to have part of the benefit, and they forced them into taking on this fake money that they create, and they've been in debt ever since. But before that, they were never in debt. So it's quite a simple operation, really, if you can look at some of those points of history. You could probably say a similar thing about Germany as well during Hitler's time. You could say a similar thing about when they introduced the Bradbury pound here, which was backed by gold. The only problem is that the bankers were the ones that bought up all the Bradbury pound and then claimed the gold afterwards. But it could have been a good system for the people. But while you've got fake money, everything just goes to hell in a handbasket.
True.
Because they can create whatever they want.
As long as you can pay back the interest.
Where does the interest come from, though?
Well, that's the whole.
Because they make the original up on a computer and then they charge you interest. Where does that come from? They have to make it up on the computer again and give you some more money, charged at interest. So eventually, over a short period of time, 50 years or so, the whole system loses its value, and we're now down to about 3% of its original value.
3%?
Yeah, and that's when every time it's got to 3%, it's collapsed. And technically it should have collapsed in 2008-9 when we had that so-called recession. But somehow they managed to keep pumping some money into the system.
Sure.
It's
like those cold, windy, wet days in winter, and you pull out the game of Monopoly, don't you? So
yeah,
Monopoly, and everybody's been taught to play Monopoly, go past go, get your $200, but go into acquisition mode and buy properties and motel and hotel. It's an interesting game, but it's manifested in the so-called world that we live in now. So it's a matter of getting out of the game of Monopoly, isn't it, and coming back to what you were talking about.
And life is really not about money, although everybody seems to be focused on that at the moment. Life is about sharing and caring for one another. And if you can get back to that principle, then the money would flow anyway. So I think the world would be a much better place.
100%. Hey, Pauline, you got something to say? Because I've got a heap of questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what happened between 1990 and 2020? Because that was quite a journey. In the title of today is "I'm Just a Builder." So, what were you doing in all that time from Arizona until you woke up in England? And wow, here the future had arrived.
Well, if I go back, I was brought up on a farm, so I'm a country boy, really.
Yeah, good.
And I helped my dad build lots of sheds and do repairs and all that sort of stuff around the farm. I trained as a master builder. That's why I call myself just a builder. And worked in that for a few years. But then when I went to England, I got into other different things like the oil industry, and I worked up there for about 6 years, and then decided to go to America to fly airplanes. So I flew airplanes in America, and that's when I had all the visions when I was doing the training on that stuff. So just a builder is an interesting terminology, but it's not really about me. It's not really about me. It's about what we can offer each other, isn't it? It's how we can support and help each other. And if we don't come together, we may not fully be able to recognize this time that we're in, because part of the visions that I had were that this madness breaks and falls away, dissipates.
Okay.
And we have to come together if we're going to make this manifest this new world that we want.
True.
If we don't come together, then they will usurp us once more with some fakery to try and keep control over the people.
Do you see fakery as quite obvious? How is it that you...
Everything is fakery.
Everything is fake.
For about 500 years, everything that we've been told is a lie. And if you go into the CIA Operation Mockingbird nonsense, they talk at that time that when everything that they tell us is a lie and we believe it, they have won the game. But we know it's a lie. If you turn it upside down, you'll probably find what we're told. If you turn upside down, you'll probably find it's closer to the truth. It's at least 180 degrees out of kilter.
Mm-hmm.
So no wonder everybody is so distraught at this point, because how the hell do they know what's true, what's real?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting an inordinate amount of fake news, and nobody can substantiate it. Even Facebook and other are doing fact checking, and nobody really knows what facts they're checking against what. And Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah.
So they've had a few trial runs at fake news.
Oh yes, everything is fake, because from Operation Mockingbird was to turn everything the opposite to the truth. And if the people believe that nonsense, why do you think we have April Fool's Day on the 1st of April? Crazy. What's April Fool's Day? Because we're mad enough and stupid enough to believe the shit that they've told us all the rest of the year.
Okay. And here we go again. Start another year.
Yeah.
Foreign policy and counter Soviet influence. Yes. Gosh, I've forgotten all about that in those. Yeah. So, how did you come across all these Kabbalistic and secret messages and symbols that were letting those that knew that what was being told to them at this moment was not true? Because I was looking at the front of your book, it was a big giveaway.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy called Bill Cooper, or William Cooper, who was one of the first private intelligence agents in America. A lovely man. He lived about an hour's drive from me, and I used to go and see him once a month, listen to his radio station, read his newspaper outlets, and that's where I got my start in the early 90s. And of course, you talk to other people about it, and they tell you you're completely gaga. But when you know what you're finding is true, and you can tell very easily if you listen from your heart, not from your head, because truth, there's vibration in truth, and you'll feel it in your heart if it's true. So you know that it's true, but nobody will listen to you. And it's only in the last 2 years that I've had 2 people come to me and say, you know, all that shit you talked about way back in the 90s? I say, yeah, what about it? They said, well, it's all coming true. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, how did you know? I couldn't help myself. And I said, well, how did you not? I even told you, you still wouldn't listen.
Wow.
So it's very interesting, because my dad used to have a saying, life is like jumping out of an airplane.
Oh.
Your mind is your parachute. It is only of any value to you if it's open. So we have to be open to listen. Then go and do some research and find out whether you believe it or not. But at least first be open to listen.
Right, here we are. So that is used quite a bit. Certainly, I remember the Schweppes advert.
Yeah.
You know who. That was a very famous advert that we had here in England that probably you remember.
It has
and
many
many other.
meanings.
Okay, let's go
The
for it.
finger on
Please.
the lips has many meanings, but in their world, it means keep our secrets, basically. Yeah. Keep your mouth shut.
And other
Keep our secrets.
okay, and other meanings?
Well, depends whether the lips are open or not. That could mean a sensory meaning to it. We in our world, it's sort of about being silent. It's time to be quiet. But in their world, it's about keep your mouth shut because we don't want you to tell our secrets.
Squirrels know better.
Yeah, they're not eating the GMO food.
Ah, yeah. Yep. They don't need to do any analytical studies to know which one to eat and which one not to eat. Fabulous. So nature does have a way of preserving quietly, silently, and just keep on being nature. Nature's always existed. Ah, okay. Wow, we've got some news coming through. So, in the whisperings in your book, what kind of things are you advocating?
Well, it starts off with I put a little bit of story about me and why maybe somebody or anybody that reads the book could take heed to the information, because I went through a terrible health crisis.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
And then I worked out what had caused it. So I put these things down in the book. So the first half of the book is basically about health, and the first point about health is being right in the head.
True.
Because if you're not right in the head, you're not going to take care of the temple that you have.
True.
And the second half of the book is about how we got there. So
All right.
But the two main things is that we've got so much crap in the food that we're living in intolerance the whole time.
Uh-huh.
And when our body is dealing with intolerance, it's not doing anything to heal itself. It's too busy dealing with the intolerance, trying to clear that up.
Mm-hmm.
So we stop the intolerance by stop eating the rubbish that we're eating, and then the body can do something about repairing itself and healing itself. We've proved this over and over and over and over again with the people that have worked with us or been prepared to work with us on some of this stuff.
So the intolerances, they would activate our immune system. So little by little, with the constancy, I'm just questioning, the little by little with the constancy of intolerance, the peripheral defenses get worn out within the body.
No, they're dealing with well, yeah, I suppose they do, but they're dealing with the intolerance to try and clear up the intolerance and the effects of the intolerance, and they're not
Mhm.
going into work and repair the cells and
Ah,
do the good
so,
work that they
okay.
need to do. They're just working on clearing out the intolerance.
Okay. Is there a couple of things that you would identify clearly as intolerance substances?
Well, there's four main ones that I believe are causing huge amounts of intolerance today.
Mhm.
The first one is vegetable oil.
Vegetable oil. Okay.
The Heart Association says you've got to have vegetable oil. Don't do animal fat because it's bad for you.
Mhm.
But with the increase of vegetable oil, the increase of heart attacks and strokes took place. So why would you follow that guidance? The second one is sugar.
Mhm.
And if you look at all the pop drinks that have been out there, the increase of the consumption of pop was the increase of things like diabetes and other health issues.
Right.
They run like two railroad tracks. It's fabulous when you actually see this.
Mhm.
So we want to take those two out of our diet altogether, and be careful of the word diet because the first three letters are the key, I think.
Yeah.
Well spotted. Very well spotted. You need to get over the die till you get to diet.
Yeah,
Okay, very good.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the next two are wheat, because if you go back in history, wheat was probably a good product. It was about 4 foot high. It had all the minerals in it that you could have needed to digest it. But today it's about 1 foot high and got a lot more so-called gluten in it, and it's full of chemicals, including glyphosate. Absolutely full of chemicals. So it's actually a toxic mess in your small intestines and bowel. No wonder it causes problems.
Sure.
And then the fourth one is dairy,
Ah,
because if you put dairy on top of wheat, you've got the perfect environment for terrible fungus and bacteria to get to work. And then, of course, the parasites love it too.
Well, what a strange coincidence. So yesterday we had our Australia North America show, and the gentleman Asaki, he's written a book, and he's been on a raw food diet for 16 years, and his energy levels to the point that at 67 he's just finished his 8th marathon since taking up raw foods. So yeah, he's a living example of following principles of what you just outlined there, Stewart. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is his website, rawfoodies.com.
wow.
Yeah, interesting guy. So, but Pauline's introduced us to Michelangelo. So I take it that you've met Michelangelo, Stewart.
Oh yes, many times.
Yeah. So you're starting to build your community. I just want to introduce you to this. Oh, hang on a sec. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, so this is Judith and Paul Collins. And so over 50 years ago, they got an 80-acre property just south of Sydney, north of Canberra. And they formulated a permaculture organic farm with microclimates. When I say microclimates, I'm talking about, subtropical, tropical, very arid and all that stuff. And we've had so many. So after being established for over 10 years, and there's dudes there started to set up courses at universities and so forth. And this has become, when I spoke to this lady yesterday, I said, I've been up to Findhorn 3 times. She said, oh, yes, Findhorn. She said, well, they've got their awareness. We've got our awareness here. So we've had our little part of the world. and so many groups come through to get educated, because it's now become just like Findhorn, a university of life, where it's
Right.
98% of them, their whole property is off the grid, so they can feed themselves. So it took 2 people to do it, but the others have come and followed up with the woofers. So they've been able to sustain themselves, and they got their income by traveling around the world and doing exposés and conferences and stuff like that, which is what the people from Findhorn did as well.
Yeah.
So it was a great privilege to have a share with her. Her other abilities is reading auras. So her ability to look at individuals and even foods and seeing their aura from the fruit, vegetables, tells us straight away whether or not it's ripe for plucking, or you got to put it into the compost. So so all around the world, people have been operating in their own isolation. It's shows like this, or coming together through Zoom or other things like that, that shows that we're not alone. That around the world, it might be individuals, but all of a sudden, it's the jigsaw puzzle comes together, and all 4 corners of the world, so to speak, represents the jigsaw puzzle, and then boom, boom, it's all coming together. So everybody's using modern technology to actually network and come together. So you're building the grassroots from the ground up. You don't need to go, to the top and try and take it out from the top. You start building from below and come up. And of course, logistics and food and people are the major points to it. I just digress somewhat, but I'm going to come back to it. On my morning walk, there's a lady who's a high school teacher, and she told me when she was walking a dog, she's a Cocker Spaniel, that she had to fail 5 of her grade 12 students, which is last year of high school, because they'd written it in AI, had written the essay. I said, well, how did you know it was AI? Oh, we've got a software program that tells us AI. So with that in mind,
it's funny.
So with that in mind, I've been working with Elon Musk's AI program called Grok. And I put that question to him. I said, now, where are we going with this? It was so bad, I can't believe it. So that's what I'm going to tell you. He told me, why would you want to spend $80,000, $120,000 or $150,000 for a university degree, 4 or 5 years, when you can ask any one of the AI programs and you'll get the answer in 10 seconds? Why would you want to go to university, get a degree, and spend all that money and be hopped? Yeah. So I said, well, okay, what industries? He said, well, first of all, you're not going to see universities as they are today. They're going to just collapse within themselves. They're going to have to survive by doing 4 to 6 week course programs. Yeah. Then we go through all the white collar jobs, marketing, advertising, promotion, business consultants, financial planners, superannuation. Then we go musos, photographers. So I said, well, okay, it's pretty devastating. What industry is going to survive? And he said, tradies. So no need to go to university to get a so-called white-collar job. You go and learn how to become an electrician, a plumber, and all that stuff. And but even
those that are practical, hands-on.
Yeah, exactly right. But even so, you're coming out of China, you're seeing the container homes that are coming out already done, and that's been done because here in Australia, you're seeing workplace things, and the unions have been really strong on it, and you get to the point that just to go and get council planning and all that stuff, and by the time you got that put in place, the costs have just gone up to the point that it just becomes, how do you go and borrow money? Like you get to the point. So people then, what's the quickest way of doing it? Well, just go and get a container home, deposit on your property, instant, and you get the slide outs too. So they come with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and a kitchen and lounge room, and you got to put out the patio at the front there. You can see people doing it. It's the cheapest way of doing it without having to cop all the bloody add-ons. Years and years ago, we used to be the regular people turn up to our local bank because there's people got really pissed off with the bank. And so this bloke, well, actually a woman who was in the banking community, said, "Oh, why don't we start operating our own bank, like Bank of Dave, Burnley."
Oh, yes, I remember the Bank of Dave, yeah.
Yeah, so, of course, Bendigo Bank it set up a franchising system. So in our city, they decided to take their franchise on, and so they set up these banks, and they got people to put money in from superannuation funds, set it up. And so anyway, this particular once a year they used to meet with all the shareholders, and lo and behold, they had this guy who was a developer, and he said, "Okay, I've got to buy a property. I've got to do all the headworks. The council doesn't do it anymore. I've got to put in the roads. I've got to put in the sewer. I've got to put in the water lines. I've got to put in the internet now for cabling and all that stuff. I've got to do all that." And he said, "How much do you think I have to pay in council, state, and federal government taxes?" Yeah, we were gobsmacked when he said he pays $92,000 in costs associated to those three associations: council, state government, federal government. That's a lot of money. He turned around and he said, "The young lady wants to be treated like Cinderella, who's just found a prince, and she wants to go into her castle. It's got to be all schmick, just like mum." Yeah. But how many of you guys started from a home where the builder came in and you had to put in your own driveways, your paths, put in your fences, but all you got was a clothes horse, and you had to go and put your flooring down. People were hanging up sheets in the windows. You had to go and buy your little capilano honey, which had a handle on it. So once you finish the bloody honey, you got a handle. You can have coffee and mugs like that. You put lino down, but before you put the lino down, you had to go and put the newspaper down, and then you put the lino on. So as a result, and then you put your garden. So the result was you got an asset because you're going and built something from basically the bare bones of it. But now, when a young couple comes and they have to go out to the outer suburbs, they've got the transit coming into the city to go to work, and then it's an hour and a half transit one way and an hour and a half going back. It gets so time poor, and then the costs, the pressures that come onto it, and those newer suburbs don't have all the amenities. So as a consequence, those marriages collapse, and when they come to sell the property, they end up in debt because there's no working capital that's been appreciated because the margins are so tight. What an interesting conversation, and it's taken me all these years to be able to have the opportunity to share it with you.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this has all been put in place on purpose to suck every last penny out of the people, so that we have nothing. We are dry and barren. It's so clear to me that this has been done on purpose. And most of the stuff, like all this council stuff and government taxes and things, they're unlawful anyway. What jurisdiction do they really have over us? They're just a corporation. I know it's probably not the best conversation to have at this time, but that's the reality. That is the reality.
As a builder, where would you go from here? Because you're just a builder.
Well, the key point is to get together, get some land, 30, 40 or 50 acres or something, get a few people together, go and build your own homes on it.
Mm-hmm.
Build your barns, grow your food, and then you can take that out to co-ops to share it.
Okay.
Because once we fix local, nothing else matters. What power do they have over you if you're fixed local? This is the problem with the councils of today. They're all corporations controlled by the one above, and the one above that, and the one above that. They're all sub-corporations being controlled from elsewhere, not from the people.
So we come back to local councils.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, just across the border in New South Wales is Tweed Shire, and you can have multiple occupancy, which allows what you just spoke about. But generally speaking, 90% of the councils in Australia don't have multiple occupancy. So to go in and put a house, you can have the main house, but then you're going to put a second house on it. Well, then you have to have quite a large property. And for that large property, you have to go further afield. So you're probably going to end up about 200 kilometres outside the major centres, where some of those councils are requiring ratepayers, people to come back into their cities or into their local towns because the young kids can't find jobs. So they move into the city, which has been that trend for bloody generational, once the Industrial Revolution started.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that, you talk about the councils having rules and regulations. They're a corporation. They apply to your straw man. Technically, they don't apply to you.
Well, there's you can have the law of trespass, and you put that sign outside your property here in Australia, and you can have the 3 major rulings in the High Court that can stop a member of any jurisdiction coming onto your property. You have to give them consent to actually come onto your property. However, the only organisation that can actually come onto your property is actually Australian Customs and Australian Quarantine.
Same here.
And if they come on board, they usually come the federal police because they realise that you've been bringing in bloody amphetamines and ice and all that stuff. And off you go with the federal police. Boom, boom. See you later. Yeah, so that trespass notice is pretty impressive for a lot of communities, and I know in southeast Queensland and far north Queensland and northern New South Wales, so a lot of people have got that no trespass notice and the 3 High Court actions that stops anyone coming onto their property.
We have it here where the police are just going and evicting people on behalf of the bailiffs or debt collectors, all sorts of crazy stuff. But
yes,
what it means is really you're under a police state. You're not under any sensible protection of the people. Democracy. We don't have democracy. It never has. Rome completely destroyed it. And they took it on from the original Greek concept of people power. But they put their own little group in, and then this becomes mob rule, doesn't it? So I call it democracy.
Yeah.
Got it. But there is an intelligence that seems to be on this world that doesn't seem to be of human. What would you say?
Origin?
Yeah. It's something. It seems like a despotic influence there. It's not a benevolent dictator. You know what I'm saying?
Well, these people that are running things here seem to think that they come from what they call fallen angels. But from what I can gather from the research and reading I've done is that those angels came as watchers of the people to guide them and keep them on track. And because they were all men, they decided that if they carried on, that it will eventually all be dead. So they took the women of the people and produced hybrids. And this is probably what all of these people are, what's left. And it's funny, I was talking to Michelangelo about this yesterday, and he was saying that most of them have gone, except for about 30, 35. And from what I can gather, I think it was down to about 2 or 3 that are left. So the guiding hand from above is no longer there. That's why everything is so messed up right now, because they're not getting directions as to how to handle it. And when we push back, which we are with a lot of things, they really don't know how to respond anymore because they're not getting any guidance from above. So the more we push out to create the world that we want, the sooner they will fall. It's very clear.
So when you talk about,
they push out, do you just mean
so when you talk
go
about
within?
When you talk about the three that are left, are you talking from the fallen angel precept of that they're obviously thousands and thousands, thousand years old, or are you talking about the ones who left because they ascended, or they took a spaceship, or they simply died?
Well, a lot of them died,
Oh,
but I think there's been an artificial construct that they created before they left, before they died or whatever, and it's been running in some sort of computer system, for lack of a better word. It's sort of like alien intelligence. And we have a thing called the mind, that we've been told we have a mind. But is that really a blanket or a veil over our consciousness that has got connectors to this computer system somehow, and putting all these mad, crazy thoughts in our heads, like the ego thoughts? What if I do this, then that's going to happen, and so on and so forth. So if we can quieten all that down and keep that voice quiet, we will hear the beautiful voice of the creator, of the source energy coming into our head. But we have to listen very carefully, very quietly. Otherwise we'll miss it.
Okay. That's what I sense. I sense there's an intelligence here that's broadcasting all the time. It just seems to be in a loop, isn't it? It goes in a loop. So the same play, but in different centuries or different decades, if you call it as such. But the actor's playing on a different stage, but the same theme is there in a different outfit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. It's the same playbook. And this is what they say is infinity.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's doing the same old shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Backwards, forwards.
So the concept is, it's like procreation. You might have 5 million sperm, going straight up to the fallopian tubes, and one breaks in. So in terms of spirituality, you just need those souls who can come together, who can be that single sperm to actually break through, and then start the whole new process.
Yeah, well, you see the mind twist that we've been put on is that we're not worthy, and we're not capable, and we're lowly, and we're just a builder, or whatever it might be that you put forward.
Yeah.
But really, when you look at the concept you just spoke about, of the sperm, is, say, 1 million sperms all going to one place to get an egg. You're a winner from the beginning. You're an absolute winner. So why would we consider ourselves inadequate when we're already won the first game, the first stage of the
Yes.
Now it's about raising your vibration even further and breaking through the other cosmic egg, if you want to call it as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, of course, once we come out, they cut the umbilical cord, which should be left on for at least 4 or 5 hours afterwards to get the goodness from the placenta into the baby. They cut it immediately and then take it away and sell it for about 50 grand because of all the goodness that's in it.
Sure.
And of course, the poor mother doesn't know that. She's struggling to pay for the hospital visit if she has to pay. So, and then from there on, they smack your ass and prick your foot and all this other stuff. It's all downhill from there, isn't it? No wonder we're a bit all messed up.
Got your live birth certificate. In the Maori culture, they if you do the home births, they keep the placenta and they put it in the fridge, and then the family come over and they all have a taste of it, and then they go and plant a tree and put the placenta.
What's left of it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and the tree grows with that nutrients.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so the fruits that come off that tree are of a very high source.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of power in that placenta. That's why they want to steal it so quick.
Mm.
But it should be left on so that it drains its goodness into the baby to give the baby the start in life that it's supposed to have. That until the cord shrinks, it should never be cut. Never. So, when you look at what's going on in the world, though, you see all these little details, and you say, well, the world is completely mad.
Mm.
But they've designed it that way.
Okay, so you get your people together, and then I'm just talking theoretically here. So obviously, to go and source the property would require you to have the lucre, the current financial monies that are currently in existence, club together, set up your cooperative, buy the property, because that's what you're going to have to do to play their game, to actually get that property, and then you sort of have one foot in the private and one foot in the public. So the next question is, you get the local, or the people who come and club together. The question is, how many generations are involved? Because when I start seeing some of these groups, I don't see anyone under 35.
The best groups that I've seen, and I saw one in Texas, and they had from older people who started it, and then they brought in younger people who started having children, and those children are growing up into the community, and that's the best way it works. And you can't do this old hippie nonsense that everybody keeps talking about. You have to have a private space for each family to live, their own private space and their own house and their own little bit of land, and then they come into the community to work. You cannot have everybody living in a big barn or something like that, like a hippie community. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Would you go to Pennsylvania and have a look at how the Amish operate? Is that
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sort of similar concept that I'm talking about. Yeah, they all have their own space, their own houses. They share the land with the rest of the community. They come together to build the barns and the houses and things that are needed, and grow the food.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the principle that I'm talking about as a community, not as a hippie tile community, but closer to the Amish principles.
You think
because everybody has a skill that can help each other. Yeah.
Go on, Priti. You go.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to what if. Is it breaking through all those questionings that we kind of constantly give ourselves because of this idea that we're lowly, and you keep on asking questions. So the source energy is beyond the questioning. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, if you have a thought, my ex was the most incredible at this that I've ever seen anybody. She would have the most incredible thought about how we should go forward and do stuff. And sometimes she would tell me and I could remember it. But then she'd go through 10 other reasons why, well, if we do that, then this might happen. And if that happens, then something else is going to happen. And just all this blah, blah stuff in your head.
Yeah.
Just shut the hell up with all that stuff and listen to the original thought. Because if you listen to the original thought, that's the one that'll guide you, not all this other yap that's going on in your... It's like that little man on your shoulder or little girl on your shoulder.
Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket telling you all this madness, this nonsense. That's what the mind matrix is doing, as far as I can see. So if you can shut that up, And
Mm.
probably the easiest way to do that is with love. Say, look, because the ego mind can only help you with what it already knows or what it already believes or has heard and believes to be true. Maybe nothing to do with you, maybe not even relevant, but it's some story that it's in its head. So the ego mind will only do work from the past knowledge. So you can say, well, look, I'm looking after you now. Don't worry. If you can help me with this new knowledge, then please come forward. But otherwise, just let it be, and I'll take care of you. And if you say that a few times, it will say, oh, okay, I'm now looked after. But if you don't communicate with that ego mind, it will be like a little scared kid that's always pulling on your shirt or your dress or your pants, wanting attention.
Okay.
But give it attention and just say, look, I'm looking after you, don't worry. And it will eventually keep quiet, and you'll hear the beautiful still voice of the source energy.
So would you consider doing a hypnosis and moving down into the theta wave where you can actually reprogram yourself by doing that? I mean, it's a bit like the movie Inception, where you go through into 4 different dream states to get to the source where you can change it and then come back into this realm, and everything's going to change pretty quickly. So is that a quick way of changing the storyline? I mean, last week we had Jennifer from the Netherlands speaking about the stories and breaking the stories down and coming back to that place that you just spoke about there, Stewart, the silent part of life.
It might help. It might be a way to do it. I don't know enough about that to comment really on that side of it, but you can do it yourself with practice. But I mean, that may be a way to help you get into that process. The hardest thing that most people have is to shut that chatter in their head. Well, I've probably been lucky because I never had that chatter in my head. Never. So, but I know that a lot of people do, or most people do, I guess. But if you can quieten that chatter by from a place of love, then you will get that beautiful still energy, the beautiful still voice. It's very quiet, very gentle, and so you have to listen carefully when it comes, otherwise you'll miss it. But that's getting close with what could be called the Father. The source energy is stilling your existence to get in connection with the source energy. Is some people call it getting close to the Father. I don't know if that's a good terminology that you like, but if we don't do that, then we won't get those beautiful still messages, and that's the real guiding influence in our life. I can tell you
but building your community then and getting people to come on board, would that be one of the first things that you'd be looking for in individuals that would come onto the property, to have that awareness of going into that still space of that mind? I mean, Findhorn would meet every morning at 7 o'clock and they'd do a meditation, and they'd be putting a request about what they wanted to manifest for the community. One of the most amazing stories there when I was there was they wanted to get a bus to take their kids down to Fours to the school there so they could learn all about these new Apple Mac computers. And so that was the intent. Unbeknownst to them, 2 guys from Apple Corporation have come to bloody London for a conference, heard about Findhorn, and decided to make the pilgrimage up to Findhorn, and they came onto the property. There was no one around, and they're all in the big Universal Hall doing their buddy meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was the Universal Hall, but one of the other halls. Anyway, when they finally met the people, the offer was, we want to give you 26 Apple Mac computers so that you could work with your children and bring out the knowledge and the creativity from what they're offering. So yeah, they didn't get their bus, but they got the.
But they got the 26 computers.
Yeah, they just happened to have 26 kids. They wanted a bus that could handle 26 kids. It was really amazing, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah,
it is, and we've been taught to pray. But what is pray? Pray is a negative, isn't it? It's like you prey on somebody or prey on something.
Yeah.
Means that you're like a lion. You're out there to go and kill or whatever. But maybe we'd be better to praise that we have already what we want. And that's probably what they were doing with their meditation, by manifesting it in that way. And then it just comes.
true. Okay, so coming back to your group then, so you're going to be putting it out there. Praise the Lord. Send us the people. Send us the property. Then you manifest them. So there's going to be such a large dichotomy of individuals coming with their own individual gifts. How do you weave that into a wholesome community? We just follow the rules. How does it all fit together?
Well, initially, because we've been living in a rule-based society, we probably have to have some basic rules about how we treat each other and so on.
Yeah.
And eventually that will balance out, about respect, etc. And the fact that you've got to put a certain amount of time or effort into whatever you agree is appropriate. So you come knowing this stuff, and if you don't follow up with it, then you're not abiding by the agreement that you put in place. Unfortunately, at this point, where so many of us are caught in the old world, so we have to come through that to get into the new space where we do stand in our honor.
Yes.
But that's hard for most people because they've been caught in the deception world, the world of deception.
Yeah.
That
they've been trained.
They've been trained. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah, they've been trained in the world of
deception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't even know they're doing it, a lot of them.
Yes.
I mean, I get mad when people don't do what they say they're going to do, but sometimes things get in the way and they don't do it. But they should at least come forward and say, well, look, something's come up and I can't do it. We have to be straight and open and forthright. No beating around the bush like the English love to beat around the bush here.
Yeah.
So do you think
we had a conversation?
So do you think having a community that's doing meditation? I mean, I've sat in meditation groups, for some time where it's a disciplined group, and the energy rises to the point that you almost, you actually become quite telepathic with each other and
yes,
thoughts.
Totally agree.
And so that energy that is emitted, and you meet like-minded people, you don't have to speak. You're in that space, and the thoughts come as a picture, and you can right here, and you just get on and do it. It's a different world because then you cut through it. Yeah.
I just got a whole body full of goosebumps when you talked about that, because that's exactly how we interact and connect. And I have meditated most of my life just wherever I am, anytime I can go into that place of meditation. But for most at this time, you probably have to have a proper physical manifestation of a group going to do the meditation as an initial place. But as time goes on, that won't be needed, I wouldn't think. But certainly in the beginning, that's a very important aspect of group function.
This group of group of 7 came together, and they bought a 9-acre property, not all that far from me, and they run monthly classes of different individuals who come and share their gifts of some tropic farming or aircrete domes, earth foods, which is an organic material that offers benefit to the soil. Anyway, so they came with these principles of what we just spoke about. But what actually took place was a disruption. And that disruption saw 2 people move away from the destruction of personalities. And then other people then within that, it's over left with 5 people. Those 5 people then had to club up some more money in order to pay out the 2 that have left. It came with the grandest ideas, great principles, and for 6 years there, they had that tightness, and then there's energy split. That's another factor is, in somehow or another, you need an arrangement where you have an exit and an entry and an exit strategy, so that the community can still continue.
Absolutely, because the dynamics of some people just don't gel with some of the others, and that's sort of life, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not prepared to go into the nuts and bolts of it, but we can talk off air about that. But there's a personality that one created that. Anyway, so any particular part of the world that you want to go and set up the community? I mean, after speaking about America and obviously New Zealand and Australia and the UK, obviously, is it something that you want to be drawn to set it up in the UK?
Well, initially I was looking in Kent and Sussex. I particularly liked the East Sussex area because of the downs and the contour of the land, and if they stop spraying that shit in the skies, then we'll have some beautiful sunshine. Yeah, that's the area.
Okay.
So that's my initial thought, but I'm open to suggestion for almost anywhere, really. I did look at Chile many years ago, but they changed the globalists got in there and messed up the government and changed a lot of the rules, so that wasn't so attractive anymore.
Right.
But New Zealand or Australia would probably be all right if we can just get rid of those transvestites running the show. If you know what I mean.
I know where you're going. Hey, of course, in Australia, it's all about water security. Yeah. I mean, the
community must start by farming the water. That's the first job, to farm. If you look at cultures in places in parts of New South Wales and down around Adelaide, there's a couple of farmers that were down there that were farming the water, and they were actually kicked off their land because they had controlled the water in such a way down in the southeast of Australia. They'd controlled the water in such a way that the big water company said that they're stealing our water. And they were pushed off their land. It was the most incredible thing, and I've seen it in places in Africa. One of the first, most significant things I saw was in Zimbabwe, It was Rhodesia then. Was this dry, barren valley with tall hills on each side. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of all of that was this beautiful green land full of trees and whatnot. And I had said, well, I've got to go and see this man. So I pulled up there, and he was farming the water. So he had green trees and green land and food all year round, surrounded by desert.
Yep.
It's really the most incredible thing.
We had a gentleman in Australia called Peter Andrews, and it's a really sad story. But it was on the ABC, Australian Broadcasting Commission, Corporation of Big Fun. You might be able to look it up, Australian story, Peter Andrews, and he was the guy who drought-proofed properties. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an internal loss of a life there within the family, which made it very devastating. Then the bank came and foreclosed on his farm. But to a guy called Jerry Harvey, who's got this Harvey Norman stores, he saw what he'd gone and done, and he asked him to come onto his property in New South Wales, and he drought-proofed his farm. And then he went and Jerry Harvey then got a guy called Richard Pratt, and he owned Visiboard. He was a billionaire, and so he got Peter Andrews to go and drought-proof his farm. And so in the story of Australia's story there, they had a helicopter going across all the lands that were actually basically dirt because of the drought. And then you come along and you see all these valleys there, it was just abundant with life. And so they're all Peter Andrews concepts. So Jerry Harvey had to go and get these academics, who in the world of agriculture from different universities to come and learn how to really drought-proof a property and not follow the textbook. One of the things that Peter did was look at the water course. The first thing he said, don't get in a digger and create a straight ditch. Don't do that at all.
Yeah, it washes it all away.
Yeah, so the first thing to do is look at your creek and then throw in rocks and logs. And so you create these little eddies and little whirlpools and stuff like that. And then the water starts running through and starts building up. And as it starts building up, in come the little insects come into the water. And then before you know it, fish, tadpoles and other things in the water start growing, little fish and stuff. And you've got this little ecosystem. And then the birds come along and then they drop bloody seeds for other bushes and stuff like that, even though you've gone and planted some of the quick growing wattles, for example, that have a 7-year life expectancy and die. So they provide the canopy. Then you can put the other trees that are going to get strength, and then boom, when the wattle dies, they can come through. So his whole principle was really to manage the water as you just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
Those little things, and then as a result, the grasses come. So when the actual grass comes and it's got the thistles and all that stuff, you just go along and you just slash it, and you might leave a 6-inch stubble, on it, and then you allow that to become the humus to start creating the topsoil, and then you keep coming in, you just slash, just leave it there, stubble. So the roots then of that, you don't really take it right down the ground. It just leaves the stubble there in the ground. It keeps the soil intact, and then you start building up the humus. So Peter Andrews. Great way.
I've read about him. One of the things we had in when I was in America, there's a farmer who had a few cattle on some thorn bushy land, and if you look at the history, the grass was about 4 or 5 foot tall, and the deer used to run through, and the mountain lions would run through and stir them all up and everything. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, why don't we recreate this? So I rode on horseback when I was with him, and we'd go and stir up the cattle everywhere, especially after the rain, so that during the rainy season, so that they'd put footprints, and they'd get these mounds or hollows of footprint there where the water would catch.
Yep.
And the grass started growing. and he could increase his cattle over time, and it was the only green area around. So just a few simple things like that. Go back to the principles of nature and let the wolf stir up the cattle. If you lose one or two, that's a shame, but it's a lot less cost in reality if you can add a whole lot more cattle to the land. So just use the principles of nature, and this is one of the things that we've been taken away from. Intensive farming is completely against nature. So if we go back to nature, we'll get more food than we can ever wish for.
True. Yeah, talking about New Zealand, there's a New Zealand bloke invented an app, and he no longer has to put up fences. So he's eliminated a lot of costs just putting up fences. He's got these, the cattle now have a collar on them with a GPS on it. And so he then sits in his bloody couch there, and he may be watching those bloody All Blacks playing, but he then changes the actual the virtual fence. Yeah. So
they get a shock every time they get to the fence.
Well, yes, but not exactly. First of all, when they're getting close to it, they get a little beep, and then they get a bit closer, then they just get it's not the shock then, it's just another longer beep, and then when they do get close to it, they get the electric shock and they pull back. So now they realize when they get the first beep, don't go any further. So yeah, virtual fencing. So it allows them to graze, with dairy cows, and you see how the farmers put the electric fence up and they get the cows to go and work in a certain area there, so they graze it right down to the grass roots, and then they run it off to the milk sheds, in the morning and then in the evening, and then they just move the actual electric fence a bit further up. So this guy doesn't have to do all that stuff. So he created the app, and it's all GPS, boom, boom. So virtual fencing. Yeah.
Wow.
$5 a cow for the collar.
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah, and that's New Zealand money too, by the way. It's about £2.20, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's all pretend money anyway. It's not real. There is no money.
Well, in God we trust is what was written on the US bill, wasn't it? So
yeah, but which God are they talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the thing.
So we get into your property, you manifested the people, and then from the various people we've had on the show, it comes back to the soil and the depth of soil and the pH of the soil. And because Bronwyn Holm, who we had on here, who's created Earth Foods, it's about the microbes going back into the soil to regenerate it, because a lot of it's all been hit with the phosphates and nitrogens and Crop King 88 or whatever. She reckons within 25 years, Australia's topsoil might be of any benefit for growing food. So
it's already dead. It takes 10 years to deplete the soils, and it's already dead. So we've been doing this shit since about 1930 something, and so the soils are long dead.
Of course, you've got the planes there doing their cloud seeding, boom, boom, so it's getting into our aquifers and in the land, and of course it's coming through the food chain. So go back to the original thing about the food we're eating and its toxicity for the whole body and changing our pH. So Bronwyn was mentioning how you don't really need to have 500 acres. She worked on a guy who's got 50 acres up at Gympie, and he's only working half an acre, and his production of pumpkins has gone from a wheelbarrow to 3 utefuls of pumpkins to go down to the Yamundi markets because of her Earth Foods microbe stuff. So it's 60-to-1 ratio. So 1 litre of her Earth Foods to 60 litres of water, and then you can use it. So they're using the composting straw around the plants, and then they put the drip feed for the water and nutrients in it. Boom, boom. But the other thing is that we're getting to an age that we don't want to really get down on our knees to put our hands in the soil. So we're probably lazy buggers, and we wouldn't prefer to have them hydroponics or aeroponics, or those big. I've seen those new ones there. That's like the Ferris wheel, and they have the big trays.
I am.
That goes around in the Ferris wheel. And the Israelis, they come up with a greenhouse, which was really, really great. The guy created a membrane. So they got the water to come up in between the membrane, went right over the greenhouse. And so it would come through and then go into the recycling system. So it became hot water. And then they moved it out at night. So the hot water went up into the glass house, and in those colder areas of Queensland. Well, I'm just saying Queensland because it was from Queensland, where you can get down to -4. Those greenhouses are still going around at 10, +10, because of the hot water they've gone and created in the greenhouse. But I mean, the greenhouse meant you didn't have to get on your knees because it was all, table. So yeah, it's another aspect of the costs involved in.
That's another reason to have young people involved that want to be involved.
Well, they're going to look at you as an old fart and say,
Yeah, the thing is, though, that some of us old farts can outwork the young.
Yes.
3 or 4 fold. But we get to the point where we don't want to be doing that. We want to guide and direct. And I have 2 or 3 other people that would be interested in the community, but they too are of a similar sort of age that have done the hard work in their life, and they want to guide and direct. So we need to really get some younger people, especially those that are ready and willing to bring in families into the group, because that's where the key is. The generations. The generations growing up in that environment, they're much more. I mean, you look at the Amish, the way they prosper in health, especially, all through the generations.
Yeah.
And there's so many simple techniques that we can prosper with, but we just don't do them. But in a community, they would be more available, because you've got the space to do stuff that you can't do if you're just living in a city section, for example.
So if you look at your life, Stewart, you've started on the farming, and then you've gone around the world and you've learned all these different things. And so now it's almost like we've got 3 sides to the coin, in the sense that the first side of the coin was, this is what the farm's like. And we turn that around and you say, you've been to Arizona, been to Australia, been over to Chile and been to the UK and all that stuff. So you need us seeing the other side of the coin. It's only when you put that coin on its side and you see the third side that you realize, okay, now I've got the wisdom, I've got the knowledge, and I've got the understanding, and I know what I really want to do. So I went to school, and there's kids there at school, they all knew what they wanted to do when they grew up. I've got no idea what I want to do when I grow up. Yeah.
They don't either, but they think they do.
You think it's bravado?
When I was, I don't know, 16 or 17, somebody said to me, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
I've absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
But I know I've got something important to do. And when 2020 came around, I said, this is it. Our generation is there to break the cycle of the past bullshit. The next generation will have to come to the party and carry it forward. We'll break it. No problem. We let it slip, so we have to break it.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Mr. Grok, our AI mate from Musk, I said to him, you realize power is going to be the biggest commodity. Number 1 commodity is going to be power, and base load power. And solar power and wind generation is not going to do it, because you guys in the AI, you need so much power. It's going to be so much conflict fighting over power. And so you have to start looking at other resources, and it's not wind or solar, whether it's going to be nuclear or fusion or fission or quantum 0 point stuff. But then Nikola Tesla told everybody, the universe is providing the power, and you just got to
Yeah.
hit frequency, you know. So I said to Grok, I said, you know what I'd do if I was Mr. Musk? I'd go and get his Dodge team and big balls, and I'd get you, Mr. Grok, and I would go there and infiltrate the patents office and find every bloody patent that showed you about technology that wasn't oil-based or nuclear-based or wind or generation, that was available to humanity, which was subjugated by financial means to put it to bed. You couldn't see it. So once you bring it out the light of day, it'll take humanity to another level, you know. You know what he told me? 6,000 patents have been taken out of the patents under the American Official Secrets Act of 1957.
No.
6,000. You imagine getting a quantum computer and just going boom, 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 and within bloody 10 seconds pulling out those 6,000 bloody patents and then releasing them to the world.
But why did they put in patents in the first place?
Yeah.
Another central control system, so that they can take all the good stuff and hide it away so that we don't get it.
Well,
this is why we've got to get away from central control.
Yeah, but I mean, J.P. Morgan was the one who financed bloody Faraday, not Faraday. What's his name? Was the Power Wars? What's the name? Nikola Tesla versus
Tesla, yeah.
Versus the other guy. What's his name?
Edison.
Edison, yeah.
Edison.
And so because J.P. Morgan had bloody backed Edison with his bloody power stations every 10 miles, and then Nikola Tesla come along with this whole new technology on AC current, you know, he made sure that bloody, and of course Morgan had bought forests and all that stuff because they need power poles and all that stuff, and then he bought the copper companies for the power line. So he was heavily invested into Edison's technology, whereas buddy Nikola Tesla said, no, mate, I just need this, and how am I going to get the money? It's free, mate. So the technology is there, isn't it? So if you've got that technology, mate, you can go out the whoops, can't you? You can live out, what's the name?
Well, one of the forbidden subjects of today is Tartaria, and it was all over the world, and they had free energy. Most of those things that we call cathedrals were nothing to do with church madness. They were healing centers and energy centers. And they had those beautiful organs in there. Why were they called organs? Because each one of those tubes resonates for the benefit of our organs. It's fabulous when you actually see the reality of all of this stuff. And it was all taken away, all hidden with the destruction of Tartaria.
And the bell ringing as well.
The bells, thousands and thousands of bells were taken away from all over America and Europe. And just melted down.
There's an intelligence on this planet that doesn't seem to be of human mind. It seems like we've got an overlord.
Well, those people may have got their technology from higher levels, but were they really sort of some sort of extraterrestrial, or were they? I mean, it's quite incredible that they looked and talked and functioned the same as all of us, but they had all this beautiful technology that the people that came after destroyed, and they destroyed them. For what purpose? To take us back to the Dark Ages so that we could be controlled.
Yeah. Very good. Now, is there any other part of the subject that you would like to talk about, Stewart, that we haven't spoken about?
And about what?
Is there anything else that we haven't spoken about that you would like to raise the consciousness and people who are watching?
There's all sorts of subjects that we could talk on that I've had a lot of time to research. But that's the key thing, really, is that we need to get to a point of coming together, working and recreating the local environment that we want, so that the so-called controllers above have no power left whatsoever to lord over us. And they really have no power anyway, because they're all corporations and they can't interact with the living man or living woman. But they do, because they've created this fictitious entity called the birth certificate.
Yeah, of course.
And we are led to believe that we are responsible for it. But
Well,
we're
no,
not really.
we can go down the rabbit hole on that. We can be on that for another couple of hours, but I'm just mindful of the time. So I think we'll get Paul to invite you back, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be lovely. Yeah. It's been a very easy flowing conversation, and it's been a delight to be listening to all the ideas and practicalities of really working out how we can dream a new dream and live a new dream.
We're nearly there. We are nearly there. We just have to push a little bit more, and that will all fall away. Focus on what we want.
Yep.
Come together and focus on what we want.
Two concepts here. It takes a very strong individual to be able to go into a meditation and see the concept. Yeah, so you've actually you've seen the concept. You just got to hold it. I've learned you've got to keep your mouth shut. Don't say nothing. And then it'll magnetize towards you and it'll manifest. So I've learnt that one. The second one is business people are very good at creating business plans, and they put budgets. And because they do that, they're getting their whole thought principles in from the mental world, and they use their, educational kinesiology or NLP, those three levels of, visual, audio, and feeling. By the time they get it onto the paper, it's their way of visualizing it, because now it's on paper. And it starts manifesting. So the business person can be very accomplished in bloody manifesting, but the first person is the one who can really do it. And if you've got a bunch of those people who can come together and hold that space and see the bigger picture, and then you start manifesting. But you got to keep your mouth shut, because once you voice it and verbalize it, it dissipates. It just breaks up.
Yes, it does. It does, absolutely. There's 2 occasions where I spoke to a friend, and I had found a piece of land that I was looking at, and I spoke to a friend, and he went and told everybody else. And then suddenly the agent come along and said, I've sold it to somebody else because he's going to give me more money.
Yeah.
And I've had that on 2 occasions. So it's better to manifest it the way you want it, and then allow it to play out. And only when it's sealed can you speak about it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So I totally agree on that one.
Well, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate that. And thank you, Priti, for organising that. And maybe be flooded with generous donations.
Yes.
Well,
including land.
Praise the Lord and send us the money.
Yeah. Well,
or just the land. We don't mind which way. It'd be brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Stewart.
All help is gratefully received, for sure. And I hope that our discussion here has been helpful to others too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, it's very concentrated, and it's very step by step. There's simple steps. Just do it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Okay. Bless you. Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Bye.